Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's your boy Wraith, and today we've got another hot one for you. So, obviously, reading the title, you know we're going to be talking about the Porzingis trade. Now, to me, that was very interesting because while I did enjoy looking into the Chris Paul trade and taking kind of a deep dive into that in a previous video, I felt like the Porzingis deal was a little bit more interesting from the standpoint of it was two contenders trying to get better. Now, some people might not say the Grizzlies are a contender. I think that when healthy and if they were to have a stronger veteran presence, it would bode well for them in the future later on down the line. That being said, I think that this trade actually addresses a lot of needs for them. Now, the biggest thing from the Porzingis deal, initially, obviously, we had Boston getting Porzingis 2023 first round pick, the 25th one. And then the Wizards got Tyus Jones, he'll have the opportunity to develop more and be his own player alongside Jordan Poole. And then Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, and then a 2023 second round pick from this year. And the Grizzlies obviously got Marcus Smart. Now, for the Grizzlies, it's pretty cut and dry. They wanted to get better on the defensive side of the ball from a leadership standpoint, from a maturity standpoint, and Marcus Smart really embodies that. Now, obviously, people are making the big comparisons to the Tony Allen build, which does make sense, granted, because obviously they both went to Oklahoma State, both played for the Celtics, both went to the Grizzlies. Marcus Smart is an interesting player, but he's also somebody that brings a lot aside from just being a scorer, because he's not a scorer. Looking at the numbers right here, almost in his entire career, he's averaged below 40% shooting from the field. The past two seasons is only 3 out of his 8 seasons he's been above 40%. In the past 2 seasons, it was 41.8. This past season, 41.5. Now, obviously, averaging 11.5 points a game isn't sexy. It's not particularly gorgeous to the eye. He did have 3 rebounds and almost 6.5 assists to pair with that, and he shot a respectable 33.5% from the 3-point line during the regular season. Now, those obviously upped come postseason time, which is where they really needed him, and he really stepped up when it came down to that. And I think that's part of the game that the Memphis Grizzlies will really benefit the most from. Obviously, you have Ja Morant being out 25 games. You'll need somebody to run the floor. They're a great team without Ja Morant. They win games. I'm pretty sure obviously it's a smaller sample size, but in the games that they've played without Ja over the course of his career, they have a slightly higher winning percentage by like 2 or 3% than when he's on the court. So you're not really affected that terribly in the past, and you can expect that trend to stick and hold same going into this season. Obviously, having Marcus Smart now gives you a little bit more flexibility. You have somebody that can run point rather properly and get people to their spots. Was he a perfect point guard for Boston? No, not necessarily. And in the playoffs, they got exposed because of their lack of playmaking. So it's not so much a thing of him being that. If he's your main passer, it's cool. It's not great, but it's okay. And since they don't have Ja Morant coming into the beginning, this first quarter of the season, first third of the season, really, they'll still be okay. They'll still be a good team. And then when you add Ja back to that and you slide him down probably to the 2 guard, you now have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart on the court at the same time playing significant minutes. Now, Marcus Smart, I would argue, did not have a Depoy tier year. I don't think he was the best defender on his team. I don't think he was the best defender in the league. Was he top 10? Yeah, I'd definitely say that. And is he a tenacious defender? 1,000%. But I don't agree that this was necessarily his year to get Depoy. But fan service, I guess. I'm not really sure. Now, not to take away from his resume at all, because he's definitely a phenomenal player, great defensive piece. He's developed in his playmaking. He's become a better catch and shooter, a better shot maker when those times do arise. So it's not something that you're super concerned about if you are the Grizzlies, and he only helps, honestly, because if you give up Tyus Jones, Tyus never really got the opportunity to take that next step and become an elite playmaker, an elite player, an elite scorer, but he'll have those opportunities with the Washington Wizards. So if I'm the Grizzlies, I feel really good about this trade. I think I got the most seamless fit as far as what I had to give up in return for what I got. Now on the Celtics side of things, it gets a little bit interesting because obviously they get Kristaps Porzingis from the Washington Wizards, but with their draft picks, they ended up getting, let's see here, Marcus Sasser with the 25th overall, and then traded him to the Detroit Pistons for the 31st overall pick, which ended up being James Najee and a couple future second round picks. After that, there was a residual trade that came out of that where the 31st pick, obviously James, ended up getting traded to my Hornets in exchange for the 34th overall pick, which ended up being Colby Jones, and the 39th overall pick, which ended up being Mohamed Gay. After that, Boston made another trade, right? So then they got the 38th overall pick, who ended up being Jordan Walsh, and a future second round pick. And the Kings got Colby Jones, the 34th overall pick. So Boston was very active when it came to the draft, which bodes well for them in the future because they have a lot of draft capital and they got some nice picks out of the deal. Now, I want to highlight the Porzingis area because obviously we talked about Marcus Smart and what he brings to the Grizzlies. But if you're Boston, you kind of feel up in the air about this trade because obviously you got Kristaps, which assists and makes it easier to, as Al Horford goes into the twilight years of his career, because he allows that shooting touch. He's honestly just added onto his game every year. And in Washington, he was quietly one of the better defenders in the league. Honestly, one of the best. And obviously him being 7'3" with a 240, 250 pound frame, he's got the size to hold up on the interior. And even he's gotten better a little bit when it comes to keeping his hands in the passing lanes and making sure that he doesn't get completely annihilated on the perimeter by smaller and quicker guards, which is a big thing in today's league because obviously the more versatile your big is, the longer you can play him on the floor. If you can't shoot, limited minutes. If you can't play defense, limited minutes. You need somebody that can do it all to a certain extent. And he's also improved in his playmaking, even though obviously his assists aren't particularly high. He did average 2.7, so about 3 a game. He ended up having 8.5 rebounds and 23 points per game. And he shot 49.8, 50% from the field, 38.5% from 3 on obviously a higher volume of shot attempts because he was playing for Washington and they didn't really have anything preferably going for them. But his 85% from the free throw line, he's just an efficient scorer, which is really important when you add him to a team like the Boston Celtics because now they're losing perimeter defense with Marcus Smart. So you need something that can offset that on the defense side of the ball, and you need to get something on offense. Now, this doesn't necessarily, to me, address a need that they had, which was obviously playmaking, right? If Marcus Smart is your best playmaker, that's okay, but the issue that they keep having in the playoffs and in really big moment, big shot games is they don't have a true distributor of the basketball. And right now it's looking like they're going to go the route of letting Jason Tatum take that LeBron kind of standpoint where he's that point forward, balls in his hands a lot of the time, him making the decisions for who gets their shots up and when he gets his, which if they buy into him that much and they believe in him that much and it does pay dividends, then that's a great move. But right now I'm not seeing the upside that they need, that me personally, if I was in the front office, to go ahead and make that switch and not get any more of a passing sense from another assignment. Now, Kristaps, obviously, Al Horford's almost out the door. We're wondering how much longer he can be Al Horford because honestly, he's staying the test of time. Yes, LeBron's done it. Yes, we've seen a lot of other players do it. But Al Horford being a big and still being able to not be a complete cone on defense at his age is extremely impressive. And every time he seems to play Joel Embiid, he just has Joel figured out. And Joel never plays up to standard with what you would expect for him to be playing against a quote-unquote old big. Now, Kristaps allows for more depth at the big man position. Obviously, they still have Robert Williams, the Time Lord. They have Al, so I'm thinking You could shift Al to the bench, have Kristaps and Time Lord starting. That would look pretty good. Not gonna lie, especially because of the shooting sense that Kristaps has, offering another option for kickouts and whatnot. And he's also got pretty good footwork. On the deepest side of the ball, you're not losing much on the interior, but on the wings, and particularly in the guard area, obviously because of Marcus Smart, you're losing a lot. But you hope that they have enough pieces to make it happen. Now, I do believe that with the way the Boston Celtics have been coached and the type of players that they have and the type of culture that they have, they'll be able to make the necessary adjustments and take that next step to not only kind of cover the spot that Marcus Smart left, but also like overstep it, because they do have an extra scoring option. And Porzingis obviously averaging 23 a game. 23 is a lot bigger than 11 and a half. So even in the playoffs, I want to say Marcus Smart averaged 14. So Kristaps is better on the offensive side of the ball. He just doesn't help with too much with the playmaking. His playmaking has gotten better, but you don't have the playmaking that you really want to see. And for them, if I'm the Celtics, that was the biggest area of need come this offseason, as it is the past couple off seasons, honestly. Now, do I think this pushes them over the hump? It potentially could, just because of the firepower that they now have. Jaylen Brown needs to be better in moments where Jason Tatum isn't hitting, because we saw them both in tandem going crazy. But when Jason wasn't hitting, you also saw Jaylen Brown wasn't hitting, which is slightly problematic, but you know that JT is the alpha dog for that team. That being said, with all the draft capital they got, they can take more shots in the dark and they can have a little bit more money and things to play with. Obviously, losing Marcus Smart hurts a lot because he was a culture guy. He kept them hard-nosed, he kept them disciplined, and even though he wasn't the oldest on the team, he was a very confident and controlled person, which really makes a difference when you come to a young team that has a lot of talent. And that's why I think the Memphis Grizzlies will benefit the most out of any of these teams as far as the trade went, because they really didn't have to give up much of their core to get something that's really going to add to their core. They're already good without Ja. You add Ja to the mix, they're really good. You add Marcus Smart for Tyus Jones, you really took a step in the right direction. And pairing him with Jaren Jackson, again, from one of the top defenses to probably they should be the top defense in the league. If they're not top two, I'd be a little disappointed. Definitely should be top three though. If I'm Boston, I still feel comfortable with my defense. They should still be top five. Obviously, Kristaps helps them in that department as far as rim protection and whatnot. 7-3 takes up a lot of space on the floor, and that matters in a lot of bigger games. But with that being said, man, yeah, it was an interesting deal. I know a lot of content creators have talked about it already. I just wanted to give my take on it. A lot of people seem to feel like Boston, like the difference in Kristaps and Marcus Smart is super great. Like Boston just robbed the Grizzlies, and that's not the case. Or, I mean, the Wizards are kind of like the little brother that always tags along to get whatever big brother is getting. In this trade right here, obviously Tyus Jones is going to be a good piece for them, but it seems like people just go there to get their numbers up, get their stock up, and look better, and then you trade them somewhere else. Which, fine, everybody. If you're going to sit in purgatory for forever, might as well get something out of it, right? Obviously, they're hoping for more things, having Jordan Poole now. Adding him with Tyus Jones, they might obviously, I don't know if they're going to give that $30 million bag to Kyle Kuzma. Me personally, I wouldn't. Kyle, I want $30 million too. I want 30 M's in my pocket too. But are we both going to get them? Just like me? No, you're not. Now, if I'm the Wizards, I have the money to spend, so they might just. But that might make them a competitive team. Not really big. Nothing too crazy, though. But yeah, man. Boston won. Washington won. The Grizzlies won. Nobody really takes a big loss in this trade. Obviously, the Wizards weren't a good team. They're not expecting to be a contender anytime soon, so that's why them giving up Kristaps doesn't destroy them in any way, shape, or form. Boston got better by a little bit. They also took a hit obviously in the playmaking category, which does hurt them. The Grizzlies really didn't get worse in any department. They just got better. So they're probably the biggest winners of this trade, even though obviously player for player, you might prefer Kristaps, obviously just because he is more offensively efficient and versatile. And also being 7'3", there's more things that you can do with him. A lot more plays that you can play him with. Marcus kind of fades from the spotlight when he runs the pure point role because he's not a Chris Paul kind of player, especially when his efficiency isn't where it needs to be. But yeah, man, hopefully with better players and better shooters around him, he'll be able to get more quality shots off and make more things happen for him on the offensive side of the ball. But with that being said, good morning, good evening, and good night to whoever's watching. And we'll catch you in the next one. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And peace.